Welcome, everybody. This is Jack Myrick with Public Strategies in Oklahoma City. And we are on our third and final webinar that focuses on social capital. And today we're going to be talking about applying social capital in the real world. And a little bit about me, I'm the co-developer of WorkForward, which is a workforce 40-hour career transition curriculum, and also help co-develop the Winning the Workplace Challenge, which is a relationship education curriculum that we use and several people around the country use to integrate relationship education into their workforce program. I've been a partner in over 20 businesses in the last 3 decades, and now I'm a trainer and a certified career coach. Also written 3 books, Business Parables to help people connect better in life and in business. And when we were developing the WorkForward curriculum, we were very intentional about keeping things from the employer perspective. And I think that's kind of our secret sauce for the program and one of the reasons why it's been so successful. And over, we stress to the participants that the number one way an employer wants to find their next hire is through some sort of social network, either somebody, the employee knows them or a friend knows them. So they're looking for a social connection. And so we needed to develop some strategies that help the applicants actually make those social connections and use their social networks to find those jobs. So today we're going to be looking at, we have 4 goals. And the first one is we're going to learn to help our clients manage and build their own social capital. Next, we're going to discover organizations that are devoted to building social capital that are hopefully in your communities already. Then we're going to hear a really exciting and cool story from a participant in Utah. And then we're going to learn how to put your organizational social capital on automatic so that you can help provide social capital to your clients and just do it in a systematic and automatic way. So how do we help our clients build their social capital? And early on when I was getting trained as a career coach, the trainer made it really clear that as you serve a lot of people, which we could potentially serve 2,000 people a year in our program, that you have to be really careful because you can burn through your own personal network really fast trying to help these people. So our goal is that we can't just use our network to help everybody. We need to teach them how to use their own network. And that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do first. We're going to look at how do we help them develop their own social network. And I really like this slide and particularly this illustration. And it's if you had access to 900 people, could that possibly help you find a job? Could it help you secure backup child care, or maybe even find child care, or help get some transportation to and from places? Maybe locate some food or some food bargains or some deals, or help with, finding a good car repair shop, or maybe even a car at a good price. So, but if you had access, if you had a network of 900 people, could it help you break through some of the barriers that you as a client might be facing? So I want you to hold that thought. We're going to come back to it and get some clarity in a few slides. So today we're going to really focus on the job part. I like to point out that previous slide because people can use social capital to solve all kinds of problems, and we do that now. I mean, if you need a new dentist, the first thing you do is start asking your friends, who do you know that's a great dentist? So we use social capital all over our lives, and it's quite effective. But today we're just going to focus mostly on the job front. So as a career coach, most people are very familiar with this phrase that are in our field, and that is people get jobs talking to people. People get jobs talking to people. We stress that a computer has never hired anybody, that eventually you're going to have to talk to people to get that job. And the thing that this is really pointing to is that the majority of jobs are never posted, meaning they're never put on Indeed or Monster or Career Builder. The majority of jobs are not posted. They use word of mouth to fill those positions, and that number can be as high as 65 to 80% of those jobs. Now, we used to use the term word of mouth quite a bit. We don't use that a whole lot now. Mostly what we say is networking. And often when you bring up the term networking, that scares people because they instantly assume you're asking them to go talk to strangers, shake their hands, ask them for work. And that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about in this little segment is how do we talk to the people that we already know? You know, how do we let the people that we know that care about us know what we're looking for and help them understand what opportunities would be best for us? So that's the word of mouth that we're talking about here. It's a whole lot less stressful than, again, talking to strangers and asking them for things. And this is real life stuff. Just, recently I was in Utah and I was in a meeting. We were interviewing a group of 8 DHS state leaders. And during a break, I just happened to ask them, I said, how many of you got hired because somebody referred you to this position or somebody told you about this position? 7 out of 8 people raised their hand that they were referred by, we call it a warm connection. And so this is real world stuff that helps us find jobs for us, and it also helps our clients find jobs. So our first strategy is we just want to help them identify their contacts, identify their network. And you have to get this down on paper. You cannot manage it unless it's written down. And we ask people to get to 30. I think the average American can easily get to 50, more likely 100 people, because we're talking, we can look at our entire sphere of life that we live in and our history. So I think we could get a significant number, but we want to keep the bar low so that it keeps the stress down. And we're going to try to come up with 30 people. And remember, these are friends. They want to help us, and so we need to help them. We begin with our inner circle. Those are the people that are the closest to us, your family, your super close friends. So you start with those, and you should get about 8 to 10 or 12 on that particular category. Then we want to broaden our search to our outer circles. Now, our outer circles, people kind of give you a little pushback sometimes that I don't really know anybody. And we experienced that right off the bat at WorkForward. We had a group of about 15 people, and about half of them were saying things like, I don't know anybody. I don't ever talk to anybody, playing that I'm super isolated card. And one of the facilitators just happened to have a gift card in his pocket. And he pulled it out and he said, hey, $20 gift card to whoever can come up with the most people on their list. Instantly, everybody went faces down, pencils flying, and within 15 minutes, everybody had over 30, and 2 of the girls were pushing 100. So the lesson here isn't that we need to give everybody a gift card to get the list done. We can't do that, and you probably can't do that. The lesson here is that the information was there, that we just need to push for it and get it down on paper. And that's what we do in WorkForward. We don't have a gift card program, so we have to push them to get these people down. And we start with their phone. Who's on your phone? Who do you know in Facebook? It's not unusual if you have a group of 10 to 15 people you're working with to have a couple people that have over 500 people on Facebook. So just start getting them thinking about their network. Excuse me. Then look at friends, family, neighbors, former employers, former coworkers, your church, your community organization, social groups. So just start looking at your life and where you interact and do life, and think about the people that you interact with. And the goal is, again, to get to that 30 people. The secret here is the outer circles, I believe. Now, there's certainly opportunities where your inner circle, your mom's going to find your job. I mean, in high school, my mom found me a job. So it does happen. But I think the majority of people, when they're in the professional world, their best opportunities, the gold relationships, the ones in the outer circles. It's kind of that old California gold rush. There's gold in them Nar Hills. There's gold in those relationships that are the outer circles, because those are the people that you don't see as often. Your inner circle, they know your situation. They probably already thought of and sent you every lead that they could think of. And so the outer circle are people that you just haven't spoken to in a while, that are traveling in circles that you are completely unaware of. I'll give you an example. let's say that your client was working with at Walmart for a year or so, and they had a coworker they really liked. They went on breaks together. They rode to work sometimes, shared rides home, that sort of thing. Really were connected. But once they quit Walmart, just like most of our work relationships, they have drifted apart, and they don't see each other or talk anymore. But they still had a good relationship. And so that person who they haven't talked to in 2 years, they could connect with, and they are traveling, again, in circles that the participant is completely unaware of, and they're going to have opportunities that they have never even thought about. So really encourage them to work on those outer circles and get as many as they can. And if they start getting to 30 fairly easy, keep pushing them. Have them get to 50. See if they could even get to 100. And just keep pushing until you feel like you've got a good representation of their network. There is a form in the description. It's a PDF form you can download. It's a really good form. It's got the 3 steps that we're talking about here. It's got a place to write 30 people down, and then it's got check boxes on how you're going to contact them. So our goal in this first step is just to capture the data, get the numbers down. Then the second step is, okay, now we have a list of these 30, 40 people. How are we going to contact them? I think you want to look at each contact individually. If there's somebody that was on your list that you've been, going back and forth on Facebook with for the last 2 years, well, by golly, do the Facebook thing. That's just fine. If it's an old friend you haven't talked to in a year or so, but they were really close to you, maybe you need to pick up the phone and call them. So pre-decide how you're going to contact them, and maybe even write that contact information down on your form. So when we contact these people, the secret is we're not asking them for a job. That puts both of you in a very uncomfortable position. Anybody that's hiring kind of conversation is a very uncomfortable conversation a lot of times. What we're asking them for is advice, asking them about a particular field. Hey, I just got my CNA certification. Do you know anybody that works in that field? We're asking for advice. You always ask for advice and not a job. Do you know anybody that works in that field that we can, that I might be able to contact, or that might possibly mentor me, or, might actually be able to show me how to get into their company? So you're asking for advice and leads, and not necessarily a job. So determine how you're going to contact them. Then the next thing is create an action plan. So you've determined how you're going to, and then just, this is where you can step in if you're a coach or a case manager. This is where you can step in and help them develop an action plan. Am I going to talk to 5 people a day? Am I going to talk to 5 people before lunch, 5 people after lunch? How am I going to reach out to these people? How am I going to follow up with these people? Have them create an action plan over the course of the next week, 2 weeks max, and that gives you something to hold them accountable to. It gives you a coaching tool to help them reach out to their network and potentially find that next position. So the 3 steps are real simple. We're going to accumulate our list. We're going to figure out how to contact them, and then we're going to develop a plan to contact them. And then as a case manager or a coach, you're going to hold them accountable to do that. So let's go back to that 900 people. You remember that number. How could they help me, or how could they help your client potentially find a job? You just had them fill out a list of 30 people. So they have 30 people in their network. Well, guess who your 30 people have? Your 30 people have their 30 people. So that 30 times 30 is 900. You really, truly have a network of 900 people, and I think it's certainly more than that, but let's just keep things conservative, that you have a lot more people that you can interact with and than you actually think that you do. And I think this is a really good illustration to show that. And this happens all day long. Happened to me just yesterday. Had a coworker who I really respect sent me an email saying she's got a friend that just got laid off from the gas company. This is what she's great at. Here's her resume. Here's the field she's interested in. If you know anybody, please forward her resume. Well, I looked at this information, and because I really trust Amy's opinion. I forwarded it to my daughter, who's an HR director. I forwarded it to a good friend of mine who runs a personnel company that specializes in this particular field. So this person who I don't even know just got their resume sent to two complete strangers to them because of the network that they had and they tapped into. So that's how this works. So most people, most people don't get what they want for three simple reasons. They don't ask. When they do ask, they ask the wrong people. And when they do ask, they ask too vaguely. So they don't ask. It's a cultural thing that I just really hate. We think we're embarrassed to ask our friends when we're in need. And that is just wrong because our friends want us to ask them. I was teaching Sunday school not long ago, and a gentleman that's been in my class for about 3 years comes up and says, hey, Jack, it's really a good lesson. That's going to really help me this week, and things have been tough, especially since I've been laid off. I got laid off a year ago at Devon Energy. They did a layoff, and he starts just going on and on. I'm like, stop, Dwayne, what do you mean you lost your job a year ago? He's like, yeah, they had a big layoff and I got caught up in it. And I'm like, why are you telling me this now? Don't you know what I do? And he's like, yeah, you're like a career coach. And I'm like irritated with him because I could have been helping him a year ago. And he just did not ask. He was embarrassed. And we need to get past that because we would want our friends to come to us if they're in need. And we need to, go to our friends when we have specific needs. So we need to ask, and then we need to ask our people and ask our people to ask their people. And then we need to be specific. What we talk about in WorkForward is you need to help them land the plane in their head. They need to have a destination. Don't just say, I'm in, I need a job. Get as specific as possible. If somebody, comes to you and says, hey, comes to me and says, hey, I need a job and I'm in construction. That's not bad. I mean, that at least narrows the field and gets me a country that they're going to land in. But if they say, I'm in construction and I'm an awesome, very dependable, hardworking carpenter, all of a sudden now I don't just have the country, but I have the city. So you've given me a very clear place to land the plane in my head. And instantly, I'm going to start running through the people that I know, and I'm going to go, hey, my next door neighbor, he's got a contracting firm, a framing company. Let me ask him if he's got any open positions. If he doesn't, I'll bet he knows somebody that does. So by being specific, you really help them help you. So that was our first goal, is really trying to help our participants, our clients, articulate their network and get it down. The next thing I want to talk about is the value of outside partners. And I think Jen and Marlo did a really good job in the previous two webinars giving you some ideas on where your clients, your customers can go out and potentially expand their networks, things that they can be involved in, social clubs and activities that are going on in the community that they can embrace and meet people. What I want to talk about here specifically is that there are certain organizations that really have a heart and a passion for our clients, and we want to find out, who they are and join them if it seems to be a good fit. For the last couple of years, been really blessed to be able to be part of the ICE project and got to go around the country, and we were looking for organizations and companies that serve the TANF population in a very innovative way. And we found several companies that did some great work in the social capital arena. And so I want to highlight a couple of them because I think you can look at them and see some of the ingredients that they do to serve the TANF population and other people in poverty in our communities. And that'll help you look for the organizations potentially in your community. So we're going to look at these outside partnerships, and the first one I want to look at is Open Table. By the way, if you get access to the PowerPoint, which is in the description, you can click on the logos of these companies, and it'll take you directly to their site. We embedded their site into the logo. So the first one is Open Table, and Open Table was founded by Jonathan Katov, and it's based in Phoenix, Arizona. They're in 27 states plus the District of Columbia and 67 plus cities, and they're a very cool organization. And if you look at the graphic, it's a really pretty clear visual on how they provide services. And they strictly work with people in poverty, and it's a very intensive kind of program. If you look at the graphic, the top left is the brother or the sister. That would be our client, our TANF client, and they would be sitting at that table as the president and owner of Me Incorporated. So they are sitting there at the table at the head as president of Me Incorporated, and now they have a personal board of directors, a personal advisory board that will advise them on all the different areas of their life that they may face barriers. So this one client has access to all these volunteers who sign up for a year to help them. And they specialize. Doesn't mean they have to be, have specialized knowledge, but they kind of focus on one area of that person's life, like finance, education, jobs, housing, healthcare, child care, those sort of things, transportation, and they help, coach and encourage the client through those barriers to get them out of that poverty environment. And their job is not to provide them with cash and resources. Their job is really to open up their social networks. These are middle-class individuals, and they now have opened up their social networks to make them available to these people and help them battle their way out of poverty. And again, it's a year-long program. And what's great about these outside organizations is, once somebody leaves your influence, once they get off assistance, I know you still care about them. So maybe you can find some organizations that you partner with that you can pass the baton on, that actually, because of the mission of their organization, they can stay with these people over a longer period of time. Some of these organizations will stay with them for, 6 months, 12 months, Open Table, 18 months, sometimes as much as 2 or 3 years. So giving them this hand up to these organizations can be a really valuable tool. So what Open Table does is they come into a community and work with the faith sector, the government, business, nonprofits, healthcare, and all these social these sectors, and they try to get them to build their social capital and integrate their personal networks so that they can help these people get out of poverty. Very, very, very cool program, and have had some solid results. 95% of the adults and families that remained in a relationship with their table members, meaning they developed friendships and kept those friendships even after the program officially ended. 85% of the graduates had a better job or were in education. 95% of them reported that they were more optimistic about their ability to be self-supporting. I think of this one as the hope factor, and we all know that hope factor can be so powerful and so necessary. As we help people walk this path out of poverty, they have to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think Open Table does a really good job with that. So you can find them at in the link that we listed, or just Google the Open Table. The next one is Circles USA. We actually got to go to Utah. Utah has a state initiative, a state circles initiative called Arrive Utah, where there's at any one time there's 5 to 7 circles programs going on throughout the state. Circles was founded in 1995 by Scott Miller. Just a great guy, has a passion to help people get out of poverty, is on a mission to help as many communities in our country achieve that goal. If you ever get a chance to listen to him speak or engage with him in a conversation, you will truly be blessed, because he is just so passionate, and his passion is contagious. They're in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they have over 70 locations across the country. And you can, again, go to Circles USA site and get more information about them. Their model, their program design is that people go let's say that you would send a couple of your TANF clients to their program. Well, they would join a program that has other people in poverty, probably in a group of 10 to 15 people, and they would go through a curriculum that they have a set up curriculum for 12 weeks. And then they would graduate. When they graduate, several things happen. Number one is they have some very clear goals on what they're going to do moving forward. So they have some real clarity of their goals. The second thing is they have graduated, so they become circle leaders, and they join a larger circles group of other graduates that now are very interactive, and they call them circle leaders because they pretty much drive the process of the group. The third thing that happens, which is very helpful, is they're assigned an ally. I think you could think of an ally like a mentor, and that mentor is assigned to them, and they might get one ally, maybe two, maybe three, depends on how receptive your community is and how many allies you can find. And so they get these allies, and those allies are to help them focus on their goals, keep them focused on their goals, and hold them accountable to the steps that it takes to get to those goals. And they like to break those goals down into small steps, and then the ally will coach them and encourage them and hold them accountable to get to those steps. And the people stay in the program until they graduate, actually, when they reach 200% federal poverty level. And then they're encouraged to go full circle and come back to the circles group as an ally, and they can help people as an ally just like the allies help them. So Circles has got some great research, and from what I could see, have a really good training program as far as going through the Circles program, helping you set up a Circles program, that sort of thing. And they've gotten some really good results: 39% increase in income after 6 months. 78% of the people increase their income after 18 months, and then participants continued to increase their income even after an 18-month period. While in Utah, we got to interview Heidi, and Heidi just has a great story, and just want to take a few minutes and let Heidi tell her story and tell what it was like to be involved in a Circles program.
So before Circles, life was hard. It was a huge struggle. My husband was unable to work. He was born with club feet, and all he had ever done his whole life was construction. So in that, he had eaten most of the cartilage out of his ankle joints. So he had to go in and have each of his ankles fused, which they could only do one at a time without completely crippling him. So that was a 2.5-year process. And in that time, I wasn't able to work, so we were living off SSI, TANF, food stamps, whatever.
TANF cash and then food stamps. And
yeah. So we had a total household income of like $900. We were paying $600 just in rent. Then there was the utilities, and then there was the car payment, and then there's the car insurance, and then there's fuel in the car, and then all this. And so we got to a point to where every month we would pay our rent and one utility. And then the next month we'd pay rent and a different utility. So at some point, every utility in my house was 3 months behind because we just couldn't afford to pay them all. So it was a major struggle. We didn't want to have to ask for help.
Right.
We have 6 kids.
Oh, goodness.
And so it made things really hard. So I went and met with Lamont, and he told me about the Circles program, and I met with Jesse, and Lamont told me when I first signed up, I told him, I says, I don't know if this is going to be good for us because I don't like sharing my dirty laundry with a lot of people. I just don't. And he says, you know what, look at it this way. It's a free meal once a week that you don't have to cook or clean up after. If that's the only reason why you come and stay, then we're glad you're there. So it was on Tuesdays back then. And so Tuesday we loaded up the car and we went to Circles and we sat down, and the first meal that we had there was Applebee's salad. And at first, that's the only reason why we went.
You remember your very first meal? That's so fun.
It was one of the best meals that we'd had in years because we couldn't afford much. I mean, we were living off top ramen and macaroni and cheese because that's what we could afford. My kids were ecstatic to get something new.
Right.
I can't say that I blame them.
Right. What did it look like? Because I know where you ended up and now, and it's pretty awesome. But what was some steps that led you? Can walk us through some of those steps where your husband eventually got a job. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So originally, my husband got a job working for the Deseret Industries, where he was able to learn new skills and learn how to associate with people. He's got really bad social anxiety, so he had to learn how to talk to somebody he didn't know, which is still really hard for him. Through that and his experience there, Jesse Checkman from Circles heard about this job over at what used to be called Orbital ATK. And they build plane parts for a bunch of different people, Boeing. They build parts of the 747s and all of that. But Jesse Checkman actually got my husband an interview with one of the main bosses, bypassing all the applications.
Jesse's one of the people in the Circles group.
Yes, Jesse's the guy that actually started teaching us when we started Circles. Okay. He's the one that taught us the first 5 classes.
So he's part of your social network here.
We still talk to him. He's
Good.
Still
So he gets awesome. Get your husband an interview.
So he gets my husband an interview there. And they do a 15-year background check on him, and they do all of this. And we were trying to figure out, why? Why would they need all this information? Well, apparently it's because Jesse got him a job in the government section, building the F-35 Lightning jets.
Does the job pay decent?
He is now making $64,000 a year salary.
Oh my gosh! So
we went from nothing. When he first started there, his starting pay was $32,000.
So he's grown. He's in this time. Yeah. So, and what would he say obviously Circles helped him get a job. Helped you guys kind of vision. Right. We can't
Our biggest thing was learning how to fix our credit and budgeting. That was our biggest issue. Yeah.
How would you say your social network is now after all this time with Circles and
It's phenomenal.
So
before Circles, I was a meth addict. I was strung out from here to hyenas. I've been clean now for 7 years.
Congratulations.
But before that, knowing where my life was, now I go out to dinner with Clearfield City Mayor. Who would have thought that this drug addict that was homeless would be going out to dinner with a mayor 7 years later? Just for conversation. And I'm friends with most of the people on the police force who would have locked me up 7 years ago. And so my network and social interactions are phenomenally better because I don't fear going up to these people and I don't fear talking to these people. Right. And it's just great. My confidence is better. My self-esteem is 1,000 times better.
What do you think your husband would say about the program?
My husband would say that he owes his life to this program. Because if it wasn't for this program, we wouldn't have the life that we have.
Right.
We would still be on TANF. I'm almost positive of it. We'd still be on TANF. We'd still be on food stamps. We'd still be working minimum wage jobs that never got us anywhere.
Right.
Because we wouldn't know how to do it.
What would you say to somebody that's like, man, that 18 months is a long time. I don't think I could make that kind of commitment. What would you?
I would tell them that you can learn more in the first 3 weeks of this program than you can learn in a lifetime on the streets.
So that's awesome.
It's just a matter of actually implementing the things that you learn.
So
because sure, you can sit back and watch everybody else do it. But unless you're willing to take the reins, it isn't going to work for you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel just encouraged myself just sitting here, and I know people just totally, absolutely benefit from hearing your story because life is hard.
Right.
And we need to see other people that have
gone through these tough seasons and been successful, and gives us encouragement. And that's what you've done here, is you've given us all encouragement. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's kind of look at some of the key components that we found with these organizations that were really trying to serve people in poverty. The ones that were the most effective, they had, and I think the circles and the open table, they check all these boxes. And so as we go through them, you're probably not going to find, unless you have one of these groups in your local community, you're probably not going to find somebody that checks all these boxes. But, gosh, if you get, one or two of these to help a client, it could be life-changing. For instance, if you can find an outside mentor, could be life-changing for that individual. But here's some of the things that you might look for. They had weekly meetings. Getting together weekly was, keeping people focused on those goals weekly was critical. And meeting together, developing relationships. And the second thing was having peer-to-peer relationships that, a friend of mine says, when life sucks, but, it's much better when it sucks together. So being in this group where people are experiencing the same challenges you are, there's just something that happens that is just encouraging. And not only do they lift you up, but you can celebrate each other's successes as you're going through the journey. They also each had their own educational program. So the people were learning something. And I think you can look at your community and say, who's doing this kind of thing? I mean, there's tons of people that are doing financial training, people that are doing parenting classes, people that are doing marriage classes, people that are doing, goal setting classes, whatever. But they have these programs, and find these programs that they're actually learning something as a group. There's something really bonding and relationship building about learning together. Then, of course, the outside mentors. Outside mentors are just so beneficial. They open up doors and windows of middle class kind of networks that your clients don't necessarily have, and they're just great encouragers. They're there. In circles they would just say they're just a friend with no expectations other than just to care about you. They just were there to care and support you, and they had nothing. They were expecting nothing in return. And that was, when you heard the stories, that was a huge part of the success of the clients, was having those intentional friends. And then the long-term commitment, that there's people that are going to be in it with you for the long haul, that we know getting out of poverty is not a quick fix, that this is a marathon, and we need people that are going to be in that marathon, encouraging us throughout the process. Also build failure into the process, that when your clients have so many barriers they're trying to overcome that they're going to fail, they're going to hit a wall, you need to be able to dust them off and say, all right, let's get back to work, let's get back on track, what do we do next? The next thing is they were very clear about having good goal setting tasks, that they would set these goals, and most of them were 6 months or less because of the environment that your clients are in. Some of them would do 5 years, but most of them, and I preferred the shorter goals and breaking those down even farther. But they all did goal setting, and then they had the accountability of the mentors and the peer-to-peer. So when you're looking for organizations, look for ones that can potentially check some of these boxes and provide services to your clients, because they care about the people in your community just like you do. So why not try to partner with them and maybe have somebody you can pass them off to that you don't have the capacity to maybe follow up long term like you would really love to. So the last thing we're going to talk about real quick is using organizational social capital, that a bunch of resources. Your coworkers know about a bunch of resources. So as an organization, you have a pretty good idea of where the local community resources are. And your clients coming in the door, there's a good chance they don't have that knowledge. So early on at Public Strategies, we started a resource guide, and it's just become an amazing document. Now it's 22 pages, has over 300 resources. We actually have them categorized, as you can see. And so people have, they can easily go to the different categories when they're hitting a barrier and try to solve some resources. What I love about the resource list is that you can provide this to your clients, and it can open up some social networks that you have without you having to make phone calls, set up appointments, set up meetings. It gives them instant access to some of these organizations and expands their social network, exponentially in a lot of ways. Now, we are in a metro area, or, a city, large city, so we're going to have a lot more resources than, say, a rural area. But I still think you go ahead and put the resource guide together. And I would encourage you to be okay that it's not going to be great at first. Ours wasn't great at first. It's going to just be a simple Word document at the beginning. And you're just going to talk to people. You're going to keep asking and asking until you get as much down on that document as possible, and then you can just print it and pass it out to everybody that you come in contact with. Well, that brings us to the end, and let me just recap real quick. We started out talking about how to help our clients identify their contacts, their social network, and then we're going to help them determine what's the best way to contact them. And then we're going to encourage them to create an action plan and then hopefully hold them accountable to that action plan. Next, we look for outside partners. Who else cares about this population? Who else is serving this population that we can align with to just add more support, expand the social network of our clients, maybe even serve them long after they're off of our rolls. So look for those outside partners, and I think you'll be surprised that you'll find. I mean, when we were doing some of the research, I found a group called Jobs for Life in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it sounded like a really neat program, and lo and behold, there was one a mile away from where I work, an office, not an office, but a group that was meeting. So I joined them, and I've been participating with that group, since the beginning of the year. And didn't know it existed until I started doing a little bit of community research. So I encourage you to do that. And then last, create a resource list so that you can, pass that social capital that you have and your coworkers have and your network has, that you can pass that on to your people in a very simple and effective way. Want to thank you for attending this series on social capital, and I hope the information that we provided has added value to you and will certainly add value to your clients. You can email me at jackmyrick@publicstrategies.com. And I just want to encourage you that, I hope this has, been helpful, but I just want to encourage you to keep on pouring your life and your heart into those that you serve, and I hope you have a blessed day.